back. Thanks for staying with us. If you've just joined us, good evening. This is News at Prime. I'm Mvoti. Now, in light of the devastating floods that left a trail of destruction in KwaZulu-Natal, motorists have been given reprieve. Fees at oThongathi and Mvoti toll plazas on the N2 highway have been suspended. It comes after Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula requested the SANRAL Board for interim relief amid the mop-up and recovery operations. For an update on this, I'm joined by Vusi Mona, spokesperson for the South African National Roads Agency Limited. Very good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Some reprieve for passengers. What does this now mean, and how did you come to the decision?
Good evening, Mpo, and good evening to the viewers at home. Shortly after the floods occurred, the Board of SANRAL and senior management undertook a trip to go and inspect the extent of the damage and to determine if there could be any intervention the roads agency could make in order to alleviate, ameliorate the plight of the affected communities. But also there was a call by the Minister of Transport, Minister Fikile Mbalula, to the Board of SANRAL to consider what it could possibly do to assist the affected communities. And of course, we also do know that there were representations from those communities, and there was also a direct appeal by the KwaZulu-Natal provincial government to the Minister of Transport for an intervention. All these factors informed the board's decision to grant the affected road users some sort of reprieve.
Yeah. And which tolls are being factored into this reprieve?
These are the oThongathi and Mvoti toll plazas on the N2 toll road.
We're being told that mop-up and recovery operations could take months on end. Has there been some form of timeline when it comes to the reprieve, or will you be working it by really just assessing the situation?
SANRAL engineers have already started to ascertain how long it could take to repair the roads, and their estimate is that the one section, I think it is the M4, could take up to 16 months, and the R102 would take something like 10 months. So the maximum period we are looking at before things get back to normal is plus minus 16 months.
And within this period, what would some of your concerns be in terms of factoring costs and really just pleasing the balance sheet?
Well, the cost has already been calculated and will be accounted for as part of SANRAL's contribution in this national effort for a recovery. We are all putting our shoulder to the wheel, as it were, and SANRAL as an organ of state is also coming to the party. So whatever revenues we are going to forfeit during that period would be calculated as part of our contribution. We don't think that, looking at the rands and cents, in the light of such huge suffering, would be an ethical thing to do. And the board, quite correctly so, has decided that it is the right thing to do to waiver these tolls whilst the roads are under repair.
In the light of the current suffering that you make mention of, the roads have been severely damaged. You've spoken of time frames, but when it comes to the overall repairs, what do you believe it will take to return to some form of normalcy, just assessing the massive, massive damage?
Well, this is going to be not just a provincial effort, but a national effort. We heard the President last week addressing the nation on what would really be a comprehensive recovery effort. It's going to take a lot of cooperation. This is going to be an intergovernmental effort. SANRAL has been asked to be the lead agency in the repair of roads. But we are, of course, going to do that not in isolation. We'll do it in partnership with the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal, with municipality, with industry, with contractors. So it's going to be a national effort, and it's going to take a lot of cooperation amongst everybody involved. And
what processes are going to be followed from this point in time when it comes to, clearing some of the roads and the construction that will need to take place and the parties that will need to come together?
As an agency of government, we're a creature of statute. So we will still need to follow procurement processes. If there has to be any deviation because of the agents of the matter, would make those representations to board and to treasury. But it is very important that we do not create a situation where we say because it's an emergency, processes are not going to be followed. So we are going to follow processes. The scope of work is going to have to be determined, and then we'll have to go out to market to specify the kind of services that we need. There will need to be adjudication, evaluation of the bids, and then appointments made.
You raised quite an important aspect of this overall conversation when you speak about processes, how you're going to be keeping a close eye on how they will be followed and what you're going to need to do to get through this load of work. And that's something that has been emphasized quite a lot when it comes to the budget that has been allocated and how it will be spent. Fears of it landing in the wrong hands or perhaps corrupt elements. How are you going to manage that process when it comes to ensuring that when the assessments come, you're not standing in the wrong?
Well, those fears are informed. Would not like to dismiss them as unfounded in the light of what we've seen happening in the public sector in general. Those concerns are informed, and we're very much alive to them as SANRAL. But the public should be comforted by the fact that SANRAL has a history of being very prudent and thorough when it comes to the management of public resources. We've seen in the recent past a number of state-owned entities appearing before the Zondo Commission. SANRAL is one of the few that never appeared before the Zondo Commission. So the public can rest assured that we are going to be prudent with the resources entrusted to us.
The President has said that SANRAL will be the lead agency over the next few months, entrusting SANRAL to ensure that all processes are followed. I mean, does it put a bit of pressure on SANRAL with the President making this public announcement that you will be tasked with being the lead agency on this extensive work that will need to be followed through?
It does indeed put a lot of pressure on us. But at the same time, we are humbled by the confidence demonstrated by the President and the national government that SANRAL can actually be the lead agency. We think we are up to the task, and we will do our utmost best to live up to the expectations of the President, national government, and indeed of road users.
And is there capacity? I mean, looking at repairs, the quality will need to be of a high standard.
Oh, most definitely. When you look at road infrastructure in this country, national road infrastructure in particular, because that's what's within our purview, we think that we do have the project management capacity as SANRAL, but with the support of industry, this country does have the capacity to make sure that the repairs are of high quality. Just by looking at some of the engineering masterpieces that we've built in KZN. There's a number of interchanges, they're brilliant works of engineering. We think we are up to the task, and indeed we will execute as expected.
And what will be some of the challenges as you execute this high level of work?
Well, we do know that, opportunities today are highly contested. So we do expect that there will be some contestation. But we are hopeful that at the end of the day, it is going to be national interest, that informs everybody's approach to this national effort. That's one challenge that I think we're going to come across, the contestation of opportunities or for opportunities. And intergovernmental work is never easy to do. As I alluded earlier, we're all creatures of statute. We'll have to ensure that all of us from national, provincial, and local government, we do things according to the book. So it's going to be a challenge to ensure that we stick to the rules.
What we saw, just going back at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and the money that had been put aside in terms of PPE, what we heard was that there was no time for the tender processes to occur because we're dealing with a very, a matter of life and death. What processes will be followed in this instance? Are we going to hear the same thing about how there was no time, so tenders couldn't be put out for people to come forward, or are you going to look at a database system and just pinpoint who you'll be working with?
No, not necessarily. Emergencies should not and are not an excuse for processes not to be followed. Public service procurement regulations do anticipate situations like these, and there are rules and regulations in terms of what you need to do in order to get a deviation, right? We don't live in a perfect world. I think the government procurement regulations are alive to that. But as I said earlier, it's not an excuse when like this happens for us as public servants not to adhere to regulations. So we look at what the regulations say. If it's an emergency and we're seeking for deviations, we'll do what the procurement regulations stipulate ought to be done.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time. SANRAL spokesperson Vusi Mona promising to do things by the book there when it comes to SANRAL now suspending all toll fees at 2 toll plazas in KwaZulu-Natal, and the sort of confidence that President has put in SANRAL in ensuring that they do the work that's needed